Hello everyone. So, welcome back to the next lecture on this topic of energy efficiency. So, what I talked last time was that now since we have understood efficiency, what could be impact of efficiency in this overall transition towards net zero carbon neutrality or net zero carbon, and then we have understood the impact of that kind of a confined growth around it, and then we saw that what could be the implication around it with respect to an issue called rebound effect, that human behavior can lead to an issue where that people can start consuming more when they start to get a more efficient devices or more efficient processes or more efficient system overall, so that they have more dispensable either energy or dispensable income in their pockets, and they end up using that by increasing the consumption. So that leads to us to another question, that is that something which is desirable? Is it something which we should look as a policy itself, or should there be some equipment or instrument through which we can start addressing this issue? And that leads us to the issue from efficiency. Let's start talking, also include a term called sufficiency, that why do we always talk in terms of efficiency with respect to making more current system more efficient? How much is sufficient for us, and can we then start looking at that efficiency as a bracket within the sufficiency bracket itself, right? So just to recall that we had this rebound effect. Now, to mitigate rebound, what we can do is that we can start moving from efficiency to sufficiency kind of a debate, where we can say that we can limit rebound. See, there could be a ethical limit itself, and overall, if you look at in form of a kind of a thought process, a sufficiency has that a very strong notion of ethics around it. But let me not get into that for now. We will discuss it as we kind of move along. But how can we limit rebound? We can limit rebound by economic instruments, that we can attach a thing of carbon pricing around the whole structure, that we can say that amount of carbon an organization is saving, they will earn more through that. So it is not about that you make the system efficient and you just absorb that kind of profit internally, but if you do it, you are also getting external validation through a carbon pricing mechanism around it. Another thing could be that we can start removing subsidies on fossil fuels. So, as many of you would already know, and I think I will cover this, I will go towards my carbon finance module, that or overall financing module, that lot of fossil fuel currently are getting subsidized. So, if we are able to make systems which are more efficient, should we also start put some kind of a penalty on the existing system itself, that if you continue to use that much amount of energy, it means you are still consuming fossil fuel till the transition to renewable energy does not happen. So, if that is the case, then in that case, should we start removing subsidy on fossil fuel and let fossil fuel become more expensive? So, for you, that you do not have a reason of not making your thing sufficient, because if you are not sufficient, you will be shelving out more money. That has its own very strong political and economic implications around it, because oil lobby is a very strong lobby in itself, and people have a lot of sentiment attached to it, but that could potentially be an equipment. And the other thing could be that put overall emission caps, and then make those emissions cap tighter and tighter year on year. So, like talking specifically in terms of PAT scheme, for example, why PAT should only talk about efficient system? Along with putting the efficient system, should industry be given a target that fair enough, you even if you want to increase production, it is up to you, but it is not only making the system efficient, it is your carbon dioxide reduction goal that you have to adhere to. So, you have to reduce your CO2 footprint year on year, and efficiency is one of the tools for that. But otherwise, your broader aim is not to only make systems more efficient, but also to reduce the carbon footprint year on year. So, second thing could be through overall system design. If we can start looking at things from a system perspective, we can think of creating a system where we, by design itself, we encourage shared mobility. We encourage like rather than individual houses, maybe houses which are working on common utilities or working in a common domain, like societies, high-rise societies, or societies which has some of the utilities or some of the functionaries which are on the shared basis. So, that will lead to per capita income reduction for sure. We can talk about smart controls. So, as soon as you see the consumption kind of increasing because of the rebound effect, you can either increase the prices again, or you can send some message that you are again going out of your maybe consumption limits, or you are again increasing your consumption. So, the issue of efficiency will go out, or you can just help people to see on the display that have they started consuming more. Like, can we come up with devices which helps people to track individual consumption for their individual devices, that though they have used a 5-star rated AC, that are their consumption less than a 3-star AC. So that is something, or they have gone into that habit of increasing AC for longer period of time. So putting controls like that in people's hand, that will also help people to understand that what is happening around them. We can limit demand. Again, it's a very sensitive topic to talk about, that can you actually put limit around demand, but at least for some sectors we can definitely think around it. The sectors which are highly subsidized, sectors which are given some financial benefits in general, some money flow into that, at least there can we work on some kind of a demand limit mechanism also. From a behavioral strategy perspective, we should start linking efficiency to sufficiency, and I'll go deeper into this debate, that what is sufficient, how much is sufficient for us. We can talk about norm-based interventions. We can really work out about. I think I've already touched upon this point, and we can always work around a reduced service demand. That can we start reducing the demand itself of the service, rather than we kind of start consuming more if we are able to save more. Some of the behavioral nudges around this, before I move really into topic of sufficiency, which can potentially be used, is that efficiency programs can use appeals and education, they can use commitments, they can use feedback mechanism, they can have financial incentives, they can have special norms messaging, that overall people should be made aware that you are getting more efficient devices, you are now investing on more efficient devices, you are working towards more efficient systems, you are working towards more efficient energy systems altogether. What is the net impact which is doing on them? Like, people will not relate to carbon dioxide at a high level, because for them to have that concept of long-term emissions impacting them in a long-term basis is very difficult to comprehend for them on a day-to-day basis. But can simpler message be given where they can see direct benefit of whatever efficiency that they are bringing into their habits? What is the direct impact of on them on a day-to-day basis? Can some kind of more nudges can be created around it, and through those nudges people should appreciate this value of efficiency which is creeping into the system. And also, what has been seen historically, that most successful interventions actually combine multiple strategies. So it is just not about technical interventions that we should worry about. We should also worry about that how do we integrate this into social behavior, how do we integrate this into economical behavior, how do we integrate this in overall societal transition. Some psychological nudges on demand side management can also be brought in. Like, we can talk about peer-to-peer comparison. Very sensitive topic again. Like, should we do that? Should we not do that? That at least people should start getting their home energy report, which should be much more detailed than the number of units that they consume. And if they can start getting some more home energy reports, at least for the conscious people, they will start understanding their consumption behavior. And in that, if we can build in the software that instead of using your energy as per a certain trend, if you would have used energy as per some different trend, what is the energy saving they would have done? What is the cost saving they could have potentially done? And what is the opportunity loss for them? How much they could have saved which they lost because they did not adhere to this demand side management strategy. So this is something which can be integrated this as through home energy reports, through smart meters. Real time feedback is something which potentially can be brought in. We can talk about sustainable default options, because the sustainability should not be a choice anymore. It should be kind of become a default option. And if anybody wants to consume more than that, they should have a deliberate effort to consume more on top of it. It should not come intuitively to them that to consume more, and then efficiency should not be given as a reward, but that should be kind of a given, that we should have more efficient system kind of bringing in. If somebody wants to use it less efficiently, they should make a deliberate attempt to make it use it less efficiently, right? We should talk about salient framing of benefits. We should, as I said earlier, that how much energy they are saving, how much cost they are saving, but there could be other ways of framing the benefit also. So and overall, if you can start framing the benefits, people will start appreciating that what are they getting into. We can talk about goal settings and gamification. There could be interplay of these energy efficient devices, how much each house is saving, how much can there be competition around it, can there be a scenario where we start awarding people for being the most efficient energy houses, like there's a technical term around it called EPI, Energy Performance Index, where we start talking about how much energy per house or per square meter of the area consumes. Can we start putting competitions around that within a controlled housing system or controlled industries, and we can start rewarding people on those things rather than just leaving it as a choice for them, and these nudges will improve DSM participation. We'll talk about higher appliances, more efficient appliances adoption, peak demand will reduce. So it's about bringing these small changes. We cannot simply assume that we will give more efficient technology to people and people will simply take it and run away with that. That's how things don't work. Things work when people are either made to realize the benefits of those things in short term basis. Again, I am repeating myself that for them to comprehend on day to day basis that there is something called carbon dioxide emission, and they should reduce their consumption just to reduce carbon dioxide emission from a long term perspective, which could have impact in 30-40 years from now. Some of them will be conscious about it, but not everybody will be conscious about it. So we have to make it more apparent for them, more visible for them on day to day basis, that what is in it for them for applying for this efficient technology. Now let's move to a kind of a debate which I kind of started a few minutes back, that what is efficiency versus sufficiency. So efficiency says that how can we make things better, like we have been talking about it, that let's adopt new technologies, let's adopt new practices, let's adopt some new systems through which we can make systems more efficient, and we have been all working about that how we can use less kilowatt hour per unit of dollar or per unit of rupees that we need to spend over. That's what we have been talking about, that how can we make things better at a from an economic benchmark perspective. That's one benchmark, and there could be more benchmarks also. Looking at the rebound effect, the debate, then the broader debate which kind of evolves around it, do we need things at all or can we do it in less? Like, I'm not talking about things here with respect to which are essential for a good living as per our needs, right? So I'm kind of putting a distinction between need versus desire. Is it our need or is it our desire? And that's where that can we start working on a system where we start talking about how much do we need to live peacefully or how much is sufficient for us. And that's where we can go into this debate of efficiency versus sufficiency. Efficiency focuses on delivering the same service with few required resources, technology optimization, we have talked enough about it. On the other hand, sufficiency focuses on reducing absolute level of consumption and demand. So it is about the number of units needed to run your house on an absolute basis is less. Do you need AC to be switched on from 4 AM to 6 AM when the temperature outside has already dropped? Is it needed? Should you program your AC in a way that this AC by design switches off around 4 o'clock in the morning, or it increases temperature by 4 degrees and you don't need it to be running at the same 24 degrees which you set up in the night, right? So these kind of things I'm talking about. Efficiency improves intensity, sufficiency addresses scale, because we are not talking about only the intensity reduction, but we are talking about overall scale reduction, because we have seen that if we reduce intensity, people may start fulfilling that intensity reduction through some other means also, but sufficiency addresses the overall issue of the scale itself, right? While efficiency gains are essential and frequently offset by a rebound effect, and but sufficiency directly confronts ecological overshoot by placing limits on material energy throughput. So what we are talking about through sufficiency is that how much do we need to live, how much do we need to do our day to day chores, like how much do we need society as a person, as a human being, as an industry to actually consume. So we kind of go into that kind of a mindset, that where we don't go into that we have saved 50 units, so let's find out some other places where we can consume these 50 units. Do we at all need to go into that new application where we need to go into consuming these 50 units additionally? Like, this is what sufficiency challenges, right? So sustainability strategies therefore face a core tension, that is a relative improvement versus absolute reduction, which is called sufficiency. So it is efficiency versus sufficiency debate which is becoming the core subject of debate at a lot of places, specifically in the developed economies, because developed economies can talk more on these lines, or even for developing economies also, at least for the set of people who have enough with respect to day to day life living standards. So with respect to world standards of comfortable living, if people have enough around those things, that maybe those strata of people can we can have then a debate that do we only work on efficiency with them, or do also encourage them to look into sufficiency, that how much do you actually need to consume. So, long term sustainability requires combining efficiency with sufficiency, and overall the priority should be for absolute reduction, because absolute, till you do not reduce absolutely, as I showed you through some examples earlier also, that we went into a mode where we improved energy efficiency by 20% and we improved the carbon generation of per unit energy by 25%. But since our GDP went up, since our population went up, and there was a rebound effect on top of it, we ended up generating more carbon because we were consuming more. So, when GDP actually went up, was there a need to consume more? And that is what sufficiency challenges. So, what is sufficiency? Sufficiency means meeting needs without unnecessary excess. It is not about deprivation or quality of life. Nobody is saying that do not go with your day to day routine things. Nobody is saying that you do not kind of perform your day to day stuff the way you need to perform. If you were underlit with 2 bulbs at your house and you need to put 2 more bulbs, all for it. But do not put two additional bulb or just do not put high intensity bulb if you do not need them. Do not put 2 additional fans where you do not need them. This is what sufficiency challenges. So, it talks about optimizing resources use, prioritizing well-being over the volume of consumption. So, it should be, am I living comfortably over how much I am consuming? Like I am given 200 free units, do I need to consume 200 free units? Can I just live with 150 units and still live happily? I do not need to necessarily stress myself to consume 50 units additionally, because for that, remember, we have to spend on devices also. We sometimes forget about those costs, right? And then it distinguishes needs from wants, and that is what I kind of or desires, like which I mentioned a few minutes back. So, overall sufficiency applies across scales. It could be individual behavior, it could be organizational strategies, it could be national policy. Where do you want to put your limit, where do you want to put your bracket is different. Like, so there could be policy level interventions also, there could be nudges based interventions also, as I mentioned before, or it could be some kind of incentive based nudges also, like I talked about carbon pricing, carbon capping, or allowing people to consume less and incentivizing them or awarding them through some mechanism. Like for example, I know I am putting a very simple and kind of a different example, like we all are becoming more health conscious of late slowly. So, is that it is about balanced diet without waste or overproduction. So, we do not need to consume more because our body do not need to eat beyond a point. So, why can't we apply that into other aspects of life also? Avoiding unnecessary use while ensuring universal access, that is a more profound statement. Many people will look at very differently, but try to understand the intent here is that it is basically shifting from more is better towards valuing durability, quality, meaningful experiences is what sufficiency talks about. From an organizational perspective, sufficiency could be done through. So, right now the organization kind of works on the top line basis. Organization works on the top line basis that more sales would mean more top line, and would in regular scenario would mean more bottom line. That is what the current model is. And since that is the model that organizations are working towards, so they are always incentivizing people to buy more and more. So, their sale has to go up. So, as soon as they have more efficient systems coming in their processes, they think that now they have the room to produce more. And if they have the room to produce more, so they do that because then they can effectively do more sales. And then so if they can do more sales, they think that their bottom line will improve or they will have more cash in their hand. Can we flip this argument and then motivate organizations to move from a sales based model to a service based model? We say that you make devices which are more durable, you make devices which are more serviceable, you make devices which stays with people longer. So, it helps you to reduce energy consumption because then you can give the same service to your end user. So, I am saying that let's change our narrative from product based organization to a service based organization. That can we give things at a service level, like people need light at their house, people do not need to buy bulbs or tubes or street lights or floodlights or whatever, people need light. can we convert light into a business model from a product based model to a service based model, and then we do a service level agreement, and we will give you that service in a most efficient way, and we kind of put some incentive for organizations to give products on those lines. Then organizations will make products which will be much more efficient, because they are getting paid for per lumen basis, they are not getting per product basis. So if they can produce those lumen with less amount of energy, obviously it will be indirect saving for them. Also they will be making product more reliable, because they don't want to service it again and again, so people don't need to throw off those lights. So whole business dimensions can be looked very differently if we start thinking it from a product based model to a service based model. Another thing could be that from we can motivate organizations to look into circular economy practices, that product take back, remanufacturing. So this will help organizations to start saving materials directly. Organizations will need to process material lesser, because maybe they can repurpose some of the devices which has been already sent to market. They can refurbish it, they can rework on those devices, and can offer customers at a lower value, but have same kind of margins for them internally. So effectively these devices, rather than going to landfill or land dumps, they will again come back to the system, and organizations can make the same money. What we will effectively do with that is that we will be mining less material, we will be mining less amount of essentials from ground lesser and lesser, and we will be recycling them more in the system, or repurposing them, or reselling them with some kind of modifications. So that could be a model which can really work towards it. Design will play a huge role over there, because product needs to be designed probably differently, because product should be designed for disassembly, reassembly. Product should be designed in such a way that if one component goes bad, the whole product doesn't need to be thrown, and specifically that part of the product can be taken off and can be replaced by a working part, while the taken out part can be resent to the factory for refurbishing it and then bringing it as a service model back in the market, right. So overall, we need to work on demand management, encouraging mindful consumption. We should have sharing platform where people should be able to share consumables with each other, and we should have pricing model which discourage overuse. Like, so while there are incentive in terms of subsidies which are given for certain amount of free uses right now in few of the economies, should we have a model that if a specific person is consuming beyond a point, then there will be a very sharp overshoot beyond certain amount of consumption. So whatever we are talking about, that there should be two core shifts I am talking about. Is one is moving from product based organizations to service based organizations, bringing more and more material back into the process, so that materials don't go to land dumps and landfills, and we need to mine less. So that is another change I am talking about. And third change I am talking about is incentivizing the performance and reprimanding overuse and that kind of behavior. So there is a very diverse perspective around it. I think I've talked mostly about it, but we can be talking about environmental ethics, we can talk about sociology of consumption, that we can have drives which can talk about against overconsumption. We can see that how the advertising is being done, how cultural norms are driving all these overconsumption and all those things, and can we have kind of clear narratives which will reprimand such behaviors. We can talk about ecological economics, which talks about advocates a steady state economy with planetary limits, that we should be talking about these things. We should talk about emphasizing reduced throughput and equitable distribution through, and this is a theory which was given by Herman Daly. So there is a lot of narrative which can be created around this whole debate, and there is a whole field of study these days in under sociology or in terms of psychological changes in behavior perspective. Why does it matter? Because what we have seen is that efficiency alone is insufficient. We clearly saw an issue called rebound effect, and which kind of led to giving away some of the advantages of efficiency. There is always a rising consumption pressure which we are seeing, which is very visible from the KANPUR-NPTEL curve also at a global level, because middle class is increasing. What happens is that middle class always aspire to move towards higher class. So there is always a class competition which comes psychologically into picture. So this consumption pressure is leading to higher consumption even when we don't need it. So looking at that behavior, we should incentivize people who are consuming less, or we should reprimand people who are consuming more. Absolute planetary constraints are definitely there, and if we don't go towards an absolute reduction model, if we only go in a relative reduction model, there will be a point beyond which we will not have materials available at all. So we should talk about how much is enough, rather than how much can I spend, how much can I consume. Rather than going on that question, we should change our question, and we should talk about a question that how much is enough, and it prompts systematic changes at smaller living spaces. Do I really need to have 5-bedroom house as I grow older, or can I just give with very cozy 2-bedroom house, or stuff like that? Can I use public transport over private vehicles? Can I use durable products over disposable goods? And can I work on a service-based model rather than a replacement model? So overall, what we are talking about is efficiency improves performance within systems, and sufficiency questions the size of the system itself. So it is about reducing the size of the system. That is what we are talking about. This will bring us to the next debate, which is debate I kind of stopped earlier, was that do we need to grow at all, right? Have we grown enough? Whatever we are talking about through efficiency is doing that growth in a systematic manner. Do we need to grow? Can we think of a model of degrowth itself? Can we think of that of a societal model where we have enough and we need to now start degrowing? At least some state of society, some countries which have been consuming more and more or have consumed so much in the past, that can we think of a model of degrowth for them? At least I am not talking about a set of people who would still want the basic needs to be met. I am talking about people in terms of that who already have sufficient to consume. They do that still needs to grow. So this whole debate kind of can evolve around a model of degrowth itself. The core definition is about degrowth is defined as equitable planned downscaling of production and consumption. So it is a planned downscaling of consumption. So we should not be talking about only a model where we continue to grow, because that's how the whole economic model has been worked around. Can we think of a model where we think of degrowing itself and systematically reduce consumption? And if we don't work towards that, are we going towards societal where we will run out of appliances, run out of, not appliances is the wrong word, run out of our essentials beyond a point. So I'm talking about a very, very drastic theory I know here, and this theory is termed as a very drastic theory because we are changing the whole narrative of our society built up, how it has been built up so far. But can we then work on an objective which is to increase human well-being while improving ecological conditions? We should explicitly reject economic growth as a necessary condition for prosperity and reject the notion of single external use or consumption as a measure for a good life. Can we start re-looking into that model of good life? And that's a debate which is now slowly start to evolve in certain part of society. I'll not go deeper into this thing because that will be beyond the scope of this course, but this whole notion of GDP as a measure of indicator of progress is being challenged, and people are talking about quality of life as a parameter rather than talking about GDP as a parameter for growth. So can we come up with a new parameter which should be about happiness index rather than coming at a GDP as a parameter for looking at our growth? So what we are talking about is a normative shift. So this is prosperity without growth, especially in high income economies, especially in the state of people who are already done well enough for themselves to reach a limit of consumption. So can that state of the society start looking at a very different way of working? So degrowth overall is a critique of growth, technology and energy use. It talks about a system where people are encouraged to consume less and less, and there is always historical evidences have shown that failure to reduce significantly can harm environmental despite decades of growth. So we have done enough harm to the environment, and then should we now stop doing that thing while we work on efficiency, while we work on everything, but still we are consuming more and more? And but what is being debated a lot these days is that technology is necessary, but it may be insufficient, it may be too slow to solve our climate changes, and when we may have lost lot of species, we may have lost lot of human lives, we may have lost lot of other species life, we may have lost lot of land area, some beautiful parts of the world if we don't keep on optimizing it. So the degrowth overall advocates absolute reduction in energy demand and material throughput, as I talked about, and it kind of works around the whole planetary boundary. Is like, so climate change is one of the 9 planetary boundaries that defining a safe operating space for humanity. There were multiple boundaries which have been already exceeded: climate change, biosphere integrity, biodiversity losses we are already seeing is, land system is changing, biochemical flows like nitrogen and phosphorus, our land fertility is changing at a lot of places. So this economic growth is putting a lot of pressure on the whole system, and that's the whole debate of degrowth around us. So what we are basically talking about is we are talking about kind of a integrated system that we should talk about a system which will not only work towards efficient consumption, growing system, but can part of the society, I am not saying that whole narrative can change overnight, but can part of the society can start making a different narrative, where we can start creating a narrative that should we stop talking about growth all the time as a parameter for our success. Can we start talking about a different parameter which is about degrowth, and can part of the society start taking that onus that we don't need to grow anymore and we can talk about us kind of a degrowth kind of a model. But that is a different debate altogether. What I am talking about totality from this debate of efficiency is that efficiency can improve technical performance, and demand side management optimizes system operations is what we have also discussed. Behavioral nudges can provide margin reduction, and we have talked about some kind of nudges which can be then used against this behavioral nudges to kind of counter these things. Subsidies and growth dynamics dominate outcomes. So, we need to really look into that as economic tools, that how much subsidy should be given, how much of growth we should work on. Can we talk about degrowth as a mechanism for look at the light, at least for the part of the society, can we start looking into that as a model. And what we also talk about, that only sufficiency and structural limit can reduce absolute energy demand, and just by improving efficiency we may not be winning this battle the way we want to grow it. So, this will kind of bring us to the end of this part of section. Now, what we will move now is to more to a sector specific analysis. So, what we have done so far is that what we have seen that energy transition are fundamentally political, economic and human behavior transformations, which is a very deep subject in itself to kind of study more. I hope I was able to touch upon those aspects a lot with you guys, right? And you can continue to read more, and if anyone of you want to reach out and discuss it over email, please feel free to do that. Technical efficiency must be analyzed together with rebound effect and institution effect, because as I have shown very clearly that if you start looking at these things in isolation, you may be reaching a limit where we may not be able to make the kind of impact that we are seeing, because rebound effect can wipe off the effectiveness of all the efficiency technologies that we are talking about. So, in next section we will now start looking into sector specific efficient technologies before I move to clean energy generation as a next topic after that. So, from next lecture what I will start looking into that, we will go into sector specific efficiency strategies. What is happening around sector specific in specific sectors to improve efficiency is something which we will look into from next class onwards. Thank you.